graciously coordinated by Ari Raskin, who I understand is in Australia. So that's also very nice. And then we'll hear some more music from Pinchas and the team. And then after that, we'll hear from Racheli and David. So we're looking forward very much. I thank you all for coming, and I look forward to enjoying the night with you. Jay?
Okay, all right, good evening. Tonight I will be speaking to you about how Hasidus has affected me. And first I'll give you a little background. My name is Gottenier. I grew up... Unexpected. I grew up in Kislev, which is between Saint Laurent and Montreal, sort of, if you guys would remember it, if you're old enough, a place called Belmont Park, that's the area. And so I grew up in a decidedly non-Jewish neighborhood. In my elementary school of 500 children, there were 4 Jews, myself, my sister, and 2 other sisters who lived on the street. We didn't have very much affiliation to Judaism in my home. My mother didn't even know she was Jewish till she was about 12 years old. My father didn't read Hebrew, he didn't have a bar mitzvah. He did speak fluent Yiddish, so we had Yiddish without Yiddishkeit. And I'm saying this not to complain, and I'm not looking for a badge of honor. I'm just telling you that's the first step in my journey. And of course I didn't realize it was a journey. I knew that there was something. I knew that I was a Jew, but beyond that, I didn't really know. It was not possible for me to know. So at about the age of 53, I started coming to this synagogue, and I started to learn with Rabbanu Hasidus, and that's really, that's the beginning. So the topic. Last Pesach, we had somebody come in who was a rabbi, and he spoke about Hasidus, and he talked about Torah. He talked about Torah as being the light and a set of laws, warmth, and he said Hasidus is like the jewels, gold, silver, diamonds that enhance and help grow your life. Hasidus is very broad and it's very deep. Broad in that it affects every single subject you could possibly imagine under the sun, and deep in that each and every one of those subjects, it goes very, very deep into it. So the details of existence, how to lead a meaningful life, such to the point where not only is Hasidus interested in character traits, but also in the traits, to the deepness of those character traits. So, I don't think we have a microphone. That's me. So to boil it down, to go so far, so broad and so deep, it's something that we could call consciousness or mindfulness. And to what end? Well, to what end is to love your fellow Jew. How? First, you have to love yourself. And I'm not talking about a narcissistic kind of love, but one where I feel like I broke some multi-generational chains and cycles that were painful and difficult. So I was shaped. Thank you so much. I was shaped by people who themselves were brought up by damaged people. It wasn't their fault. They were so busy trying to just put a roof over their head, put food on the table. They really didn't have time for self-reflection. So even before I was conscious or I was aware of who I was and what kind of being I was already thinking about my shortcomings. I was thinking about my faults, my self-talk. was sort of trying to protect me, to project something that I really wasn't. And that self-talk is really what we could call the Yetzer Hara, or we could call it your inner bully. And I don't want to make this sound dramatic. I wasn't beaten. I wasn't in a horrible atmosphere. But I was just, unfortunately, a little as normal as most people have these kinds of things as they grow up. So I eventually, because through Hasidus, I became aware that I was very much just looking at my faults, looking at my bad traits, not giving myself credit for anything that was good. So Hasidus tells us that we have a godly soul, we have an animal soul, and the godly soul doesn't really need to be rehabilitated. The godly soul is pure. Our animal soul probably doesn't want to be rehabilitated, but we have an intellect, and our intellect is sort of a negotiator between the two to allow us to understand what our godly soul is and to, hopefully, to harness our animal soul. So again, not something so dramatic. It's not a lightning bolt kind of thing. Chassidus, for me anyway, it seeped into me. And slowly, didn't even realize things were happening, and things were happening. So somebody asked me when I spoke about it, is this a self-improvement course? I said, no, this is really a self-acceptance course. And of course, I put it in brackets. It's not a real course in that sense, but you know what I mean. So because I have that awareness, I became aware when I meet other people who may not have had the benefit of Chassidus. And I see them, they could be angry, they could be irrational. And I know, instead of lashing back in kind, I know that there's some sort of deep wound that they have. Just like anybody else who has wounds. And their confrontational behavior, their anger, whatever it is that they have, it's just their Yetzer Hara, their animal soul, their inner bully, defending themselves. So aware of that, I try and meet people at their level, knowing that they just want to be understood, they just want to be loved just as much as I do. And people, of course, as we all know, manifest in so many ways this kind of behavior. When we talk about, it could be alcoholics, it could be workaholics, but those things, any of that kind of behavior, that's not really the issue. That is what's covering up the issue, that deep wound that I'm speaking about. To just give you an example, a personal example, of how I feel that I grew because of Chassidus. There was somebody from the synagogue who went away for a few weeks. They were on business or they were on holiday. They came back and they were, everybody greeted them, and I was looking, I saw it, I said, enough people are talking about, I don't need to, I don't need to greet them. And Chassid came up to me after we saw it, and he said, when somebody comes back from and they're away from the congregation for a couple of weeks, you should give them the Shalom Aleichem, welcome back to the congregation. And I sat and I listened, and I can tell you, previously in my life, I would have probably beaten myself up over it. How stupid are you? Why would you do that to someone? And I realized, you know what? He was just telling me something I needed to know. He said it in a kind way. He was very polite. He was respectful. And instead of me beating myself up and thinking about it and worrying about it, I'm not a bad person. I'm a good person. I just didn't know any better. Now I know. I think I'm going to move on and forgive myself. And why would I do that? So I'm going to do that for my children. I'm going to forgive myself for my friends. I'm going to forgive myself for my colleagues. I'm going to forgive myself for myself. And also, hopefully, for this entire congregation. Thank you very much.